Before we even begin this prophetic word, I want to say this directly to your heart. Watch this till the end, because this message wasn't created just to speak to your mind, but to go deep into the places where your heart has grown tired, your spirit has grown quiet, and your hope has started to shake. You've been waiting quietly, faithfully, painfully, and it may feel like no one sees the effort, the restraint, the prayers, the sacrifices, but God sees. And in this moment, He's not ignoring your waiting, He's rewarding it. This word is for the one who has obeyed in silence, for the one who kept walking with tears in your eyes and still said yes to God when everything in you wanted to quit. You've been misunderstood, overlooked, even counted out, and yet you remained faithful. But what if I told you heaven has recorded every tear, every prayer whispered into the pillow, every time you sowed joy while reaping sorrow? What if I told you God has been building something sacred in the background, not just to answer your wait, but to honor it? Galatians 6-9 says, "Let us not grow weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up." And you, beloved, are approaching the proper time. You didn't miss it. You weren't forgotten. The delay wasn't because you were being punished. The delay was God's proof that your life carries weight, purpose, destiny. That's why He didn't let you settle. That's why the door didn't open when you begged for it. That's why the relationship didn't work, why the job fell through, why the dream didn't manifest on your schedule. Because what you're carrying is too sacred to be placed in premature conditions. Your wait wasn't wasted, it was warfare. And you've been winning battles in silence that no one saw but God. And He's not just watching, He's responding. The reward of this season isn't just going to be material. It's going to be internal. Peace that can't be shaken. Joy that doesn't need conditions. Clarity that doesn't need confirmation from people. And love, not just romantic, but restorative love that proves you weren't too much to be held, too broken to be seen, too late to be chosen. God is restoring your name in rooms where it was once mishandled. He's placing your promise in timelines that align with your healing. He's unfolding breakthroughs that don't just feel good, but carry the weight of divine timing. Isaiah 42:31 says, "But they that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength." And your strength is being renewed right now. Not because you did everything perfectly, but because you didn't quit. Because when it got dark, you still chose light. Because when it got lonely, you still chose love. Because when you were tempted to settle, you remembered that your story is too holy to end in compromise. That's the reward, not just what you'll receive, but who you've become while waiting. You've become stronger, wiser, more sensitive to God's voice, more anchored in identity. You're not the same person who started this journey. You've matured, you've evolved, and that evolution didn't go unnoticed. God is speaking to you now. I saw you, I see you, and I'm coming to reward what nobody else understood. This reward is personal, it's prophetic, it's precise. It's coming for the version of you who never gave up. So I want you to hold on a little longer, because the same God who allowed the waiting is the same God who's preparing the weight of glory you're about to carry. And it's not just for you, it's for every person who will be blessed because you waited. You didn't just wait for love. You didn't just wait for success. You waited for alignment. And now that you're aligned, heaven is responding. You've spent days, months, maybe even years, trying to understand why things didn't happen when you thought they should. Why doors you prayed for stayed closed. Why people who felt like The one suddenly left. Why dreams that looked like they were finally about to take off crumbled right in front of you, and in your soul you wondered, what did I do wrong? But I want you to listen closely, because what the enemy tried to label as rejection, God was quietly calling redirection. What looked like delay was God's divine detour, not to deny you, but to protect you from receiving something too early, too small, or too broken to hold the weight of your purpose. You weren't forgotten. You weren't being punished. You were being protected, covered, shielded by a Father who knew that if He gave it to you then, when your heart still leaked, when your confidence still depended on people's applause, when your identity was still fragile and tied to validation, it would have crushed you instead of crowned you. So God, in His mercy, held it back. Not because you didn't deserve it, but because you deserved better than what you were asking for. You see, we ask based on our desires, but God gives based on our destiny, and destiny requires weight. Destiny requires capacity. Destiny requires timing. And so the Lord said, wait, not to torment you, but to preserve the version of you that could carry the fullness of what's coming. He saw the cracks in what you called promise. He saw the dysfunction hiding behind pretty words. He saw the pride that would have stolen your peace. He saw the distraction that would have delayed your legacy. And in love, He allowed the door to close. That's not punishment. That's protection. That's alignment. That's a Father saying, I'd rather you cry now than collapse later. That's grace that doesn't just give, it guards. And I know it's hard to see it that way when all you have is silence and longing and prayer after prayer with no answer yet. But behind the curtain of your waiting, God is working. And He's not just working on the blessing, He's working on you. Isaiah 55:8-9 says, For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, declares the Lord. As the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways. This delay is not mismanagement, it's higher wisdom. This pause is not rejection, it's preparation. God was never trying to punish you. He was preparing the stage so that when the curtain finally opens, the story He's written for, you will be worthy of the wait. And when it comes, it won't come with confusion. It won't come with drama. It won't come with insecurity or constant second guessing. It'll come with peace. And peace will be the confirmation that it's not just a good thing, it's God's thing, the kind of peace that sits deep in your belly and says, I didn't have to fight for this. It was always mine. And here's the thing, the wait wasn't just about what you were going to receive. It was about what you were becoming, because you had to become the kind of person who no longer needs a relationship to feel worthy. You had to become the kind of believer who doesn't need visibility to believe they're valuable. You had to become the kind of person who can now say, God, even if you take a little longer, I still trust you because your no is safer than anyone else's yes. That's not weakness, that's spiritual maturity. That's faith that has been fire tested. That's surrender that's been forged in the silence. And God rewards that. Hebrews 10:35-36 says, So do not throw away your confidence. It will be richly rewarded. You need to persevere so that when you have done the will of God, you will receive what He has promised. So don't let this moment make you give up what's being prepared. Don't let impatience rob you of the reward. What God is doing is divine. It's deep. It's bigger than marriage. It's bigger than breakthrough. It's about building a version of you that knows how to stay whole even before love arrives. That's the reward. To be whole before the promise, so you never lose yourself inside of it. And when it comes, the relationship, the calling, the open door, the answered prayer. It will not feel like pressure. It will feel like peace catching up to you. It will feel like divine alignment stepping into your timeline. It will be the reward of waiting well. And the best part? God isn't just rewarding the version of you who's strong now. He's also redeeming every moment you felt weak, every night you cried, every almost that failed, every no that made you feel forgotten. All of it is being turned into testimony. All of it is being turned into beauty, because nothing is wasted. In the hands of the one who loves you more deeply than you'll ever comprehend. There's something sacred about the kind of obedience that no one sees, the kind that costs you in silence, the kind that happens when the lights are off, when no one is cheering, when no one's clapping for your consistency or celebrating your restraint. It's the kind of obedience where you walk away from what looks good because God said no. It's the kind where you say yes to God even when it hurts, even when it costs you friends, timelines, expectations, and even your own understanding. And if you're honest, there were moments you thought, what's the point of doing things God's way if it only leads me into more loneliness, more delay, more waiting? But hear this clearly, heaven saw it all. Every time you kept your heart pure when you could have retaliated. Every time you kept praying even when your soul was exhausted. Every time you chose integrity over impulsiveness. Every time you cried yourself to sleep but still whispered, nevertheless, God, I trust you. Those moments didn't disappear into the dark. They were planted. And now, God is about to show you what harvest looks like. The reward is not just on the way, it's accumulating interest. Because while it may have looked like nothing was happening, the seeds you were sowing in private were growing roots. Deep, quiet, powerful roots. And now, God is about to let what was once hidden obedience become visible blessing. Matthew 6:2-6 says, then your Father, who sees what is done in secret, will reward you openly. And God is a rewarder, not just of those who show off, but of those who obey quietly, who fight battles with tears instead of claps, who stay faithful even when it doesn't feel fair. You didn't lose time, you built strength. You didn't fall behind, you were being anchored. And now that your foundation is stronger, God can trust you with more than just a moment. He can trust you with movement, because you're not seeking status, you're seeking substance. And that's what makes this reward different. You don't want it to look good, you want it to be good. You want love that is loyal, not just loud. You want opportunities that are anointed, not just applauded. You want purpose that has peace. And guess what? That's exactly what God is preparing. Not just a promise, but a promise that won't require you to lose yourself. A promise that fits your growth. A promise that protects your identity. A promise that won't make you shrink. It will make you shine. But here's the part no one tells you. Obedience isn't easy. It costs your pride. It costs your plans. It costs your control. But it gives you something greater. God's presence and God's power. And you've had both in the wait. You've learned how to lean not on your understanding, but on His Spirit. You've learned how to discern His voice, even when it didn't echo what you wanted. You've learned how to obey when it didn't. Feel good because you knew it was God. And that obedience, that posture, that willingness to say yes, Lord, when your flesh wanted to scream why, God, that's what heaven honors. That's what He's about to reward, not just with a person, not just with a platform, but with peace, clarity, divine covering, and legacy. God is not unrighteous to forget your labor of love. He is not cruel. He is not unjust. Hebrews 6:10 says, God is not unjust. He will not forget your work and the love you have shown him. So get ready, because the ones who laughed at your standards are about to witness your elevation. The ones who called your weight foolish are about to see your reward unfold with precision. And when it happens, you won't have to say, look what I did. You'll be able to stand in quiet humility and say, this is what God does when you obey in the dark. This is what happens when you don't trade your birthright for a bowl of instant validation. This is what happens when you surrender not to a timeline, but to His will. This is what happens when you obey in secret and trust that the one who formed your heart also hears your heart, and He will not delay when the time is right. Keep walking, keep standing, keep obeying, because the reward is closer than you think. You didn't ask for this waiting season to last this long. You didn't plan for the delay. You didn't pray to feel forgotten, to wrestle in silence, or to watch others be chosen while you stayed hidden. But what you didn't realize, and what God wants you to understand now, is that this waiting season wasn't just something you were surviving. It was something God was using to strengthen you in ways you couldn't yet see. Waiting seasons are not wasted seasons, they're weightlifting seasons. The tears, the prayers, the silence, the inner war between surrender and disappointment, all of it was building a foundation inside of you. A foundation that will be strong enough to carry the very thing you've been asking for. Isaiah 42:31 says, but those who wait on the Lord shall renew their strength. And that's not just poetic, that's prophetic. The strength being formed in your waiting was not surface level strength. It was deep strength. It was the kind of strength you're going to need to hold the promise when it finally shows up. Because the truth is, you can get what you prayed for and still not have the strength to keep it. You can meet the right person, but if your soul is still fragile, still desperate, still seeking validation from a partner instead of God, you can lose the very thing you waited for. But your wait wasn't punishment. It was protection. It was God giving you space to build emotional resilience, to heal the broken parts of you that would sabotage the future if left unchecked. He was building discernment so you wouldn't call dysfunction a divine appointment. He was building patience so you wouldn't sabotage real love by chasing instant gratification. He was building faith so that your joy wouldn't be tied to results, but to His presence. This season, as painful and frustrating as it's been, was actually preparing you for peace that doesn't get shaken by delays, for joy that doesn't get hijacked by silence, and for identity that doesn't crumble when people walk away. You're not the same person who entered this waiting room. You've grown, you've matured, you've learned how to breathe in the dark. You've learned how to be content without clinging. You've learned how to say, God, if you don't give it to me, you're still good. And that level of surrender, that's strength. That's what separates people who chase blessings from those who become a blessing. You are now being shaped into someone who can carry love without turning it into an idol, who can carry purpose without turning it into pride. And God did all of this with you in mind, because He loves you too much to hand you a blessing that your character can't carry. James 1:2-4 says, let patience have her perfect work, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking nothing. That's what this wait has been doing, completing you, perfecting your perspective, closing the wounds that made you anxious, breaking the patterns that made you settle, teaching your heart how to walk with God even when the answers don't show up in your timeline. You may have thought this season was about just getting through, but in heaven, you've been in training. The kind of training that doesn't show on the outside, but transforms everything on the inside. The kind of growth you only get when everything else falls silent, and all you have is God's whisper and your willingness to keep going. And now you are no longer begging for crumbs of affection. You are no longer waiting to be chosen by people who couldn't even handle your soul. Now you are waiting in strength. Now you are waiting with clarity. Now you are equipped, not just for the love, but for the weight of glory that is going to come with the blessing. And when it comes, you'll recognize it, not by how loud it is, but by the peace that walks in with it. Because your spirit has grown sensitive to peace. Your heart has grown allergic to counterfeits. You don't want just anything anymore. You want what God made for you. And that shift from impatience to discernment, from desperation to authority, that is strength. You'll look back on this waiting season and realize this wasn't just about waiting on something. This was about becoming someone. You became someone who can walk in any room and not shrink. Someone who can love deeply without losing yourself. Someone who knows the difference between timing and temptation. Someone who can carry legacy, not just love. Someone who doesn't just chase blessings, but hosts the presence of God in every decision. And now, the reward won't just be fulfilling, it will be sustainable. Because God won't give you something just to have it collapse later. He builds slow when He builds solid. And your story, it's being built solid, strong, steady, deep, and it's going to be worth every second you had to wait. You thought they were just tears, silent, private, invisible to the world, but loud in the spirit. Every time your pillow soaked with the weight of disappointment, every time you cried because what you prayed for didn't happen, every time your heart broke in places no one could reach, those weren't wasted moments, they were planted prayers. They were seeds being sown in a place that doesn't look like a harvest yet. But don't be deceived by how quiet it's been. Heaven has heard every drop. God bottles every tear. Psalm 56:8 says, "You have kept count of my tossings. Put my tears in your bottle. Are they not in your book?" Do you realize what that means? Your pain didn't just pass through time. It was recorded in heaven. That means your heartbreak is not forgotten. Your delays aren't dismissed. Your faithfulness in sorrow is not being overlooked. God remembers. He remembers the night you prayed for someone to stay and they left. He remembers when you showed up with love and were met with betrayal. He remembers when you stayed pure when temptation screamed. He remembers how you kept believing, even when your faith had to walk with a limp. Your tears were more than grief, they were intercession. You cried out not just for a person, but for purpose. You didn't just want a relationship, you wanted something holy, something that wouldn't waste your love or compromise your soul. And because you desired something sacred, the process had to be sacred too. So yes, it hurt. Yes, it was lonely. But those tears, they were evidence that your heart was still alive, that your hope was still fighting. And that kind of hope, God rewards that. You see, we think harvest comes only from action. But in the spirit, tears are action. They are warfare. They are surrender. They are a sign that your soul stayed tender when bitterness tried to build walls. And that tenderness, that softness, that refused to harden in pain, that's what makes you eligible for divine reward. Because the enemy didn't just want to break your heart, he wanted to make your heart cold. He wanted you to give up on love, to stop expecting anything holy, to settle into numbness and call it maturity. But you didn't. You still hoped. You still believed. You still whispered, "God, I know you have more for me," even with a tear-stained face, and heaven honored that fight. Ecclesiastes 3:14 says, "To everything there is a season, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance." You've done the weeping, and now God is saying, get ready, because joy is coming for every tear you sowed. This joy won't be fragile, it won't be shallow, it will be rooted, because it was born in a season where your soul had to trust without proof. You've earned it through obedience, through surrender, through endurance. And not only is joy coming, but it's coming in the exact place where you were once broken. The very area you wept over is the area God is going to restore with beauty. Where you were once rejected, you'll be celebrated. Where you were abandoned, you'll be chosen. Where you were overlooked, you'll be honored. God is not just healing your heart, He's about to give it a testimony. And I need you to believe that this is not hype, it's harvest. The kind of harvest that only comes when you've sown in suffering. The kind that only appears after long obedience. The kind that isn't built overnight, but is undeniable when it finally comes. The love you've been preparing for, the peace you've been craving, the connection that doesn't trigger old pain but heals it, it's coming. And not because you manipulated it, or forced it, or chased it. It's coming because you waited, and you wept, and you believed God when it was easier to give up. And He's not just a comforter in the pain, He's a restorer of joy. He is redeeming every ounce of pain, every tear, every hour you thought was wasted. And when the blessing shows up, you'll know, because it won't feel like pressure. It'll feel like rest. The ache will finally exhale. The weight will lift. And your soul will recognize that what you sowed in tears is now rising in joy. So do not grow weary. Keep trusting. Keep worshiping. Because the ground is not empty. It's just being prepared for a harvest that will be holy. This wasn't just about love. This wasn't just about a relationship or a door opening or a promise coming true. No, this wait, this long, painful, quiet, stretching wait was about legacy. And I know that word sounds big, even unreachable sometimes, especially when you're just trying to survive the day, trying to believe you're not forgotten, trying to hold on to faith when everything in your life screams that nothing is changing. But hear this clearly. God has been doing something eternal inside of you. Something that won't just bless your next season, it will bless the next generation. Because you made a decision, whether you realized it or not. You chose to believe God when it would have been easier to become bitter. You chose to wait. In purity, when compromise kept whispering it would get you there faster. You chose to honor your process when people mocked your pace, and God saw it, and heaven recorded it. And what you call a season of delay, heaven calls a foundation for legacy. You see, God is not just answering your prayer. He's rewriting a bloodline. He's breaking cycles. He's creating a new pattern through your life. Because what you're waiting for, whether it's love, purpose, healing, or restoration, it's not just about you getting it. It's about you receiving it in a way that sets a new standard for everyone coming after you. The way you've carried yourself, the way you've refused to settle, the way you've clung to righteousness when culture told you to let go. That's not just faith. That's legacy-level obedience. And God blesses that, not just with moments, but with movement. You're going to become someone's proof that doing it God's way still works. You're going to become the testimony someone clings to when they're tempted to give up. Your future children will inherit peace because you chose to endure the pain now. Your marriage will be rooted in real love, not trauma bonds or lust-driven desperation, because you waited for God's timing, not man's approval. Galatians 6-9. says, "Let us not grow weary in well-doing, for in due season we shall reap if we do not give up." And let me tell you something powerful. Your due season is not just a reward, it's a revelation. A revelation to the world that God is still faithful, that obedience is still worth it, that holiness still has value. People are going to look at your life and see what happens when you refuse to cave to pressure, when you choose purity over popularity, when you choose God over everything. You thought your tears were just about heartbreak, but they were watering the soil of something generational. You thought your long nights were just for survival, but they were birthing strength in your spiritual bloodline. Every day you chose to wait well, you planted something eternal. And now, that legacy is taking root. But here's the hard truth. Most people want legacy-level blessings without legacy-level sacrifice. They want the love story without the pruning. They want the breakthrough without the breaking. But not you. You've been broken, yes, but you've also been built. You've been emptied so that God could fill you with Himself. And that's why you can walk into the next season with strength, not striving, with peace, not panic, because now you know this wasn't a random delay. It was an intentional investment, and the return is going to be glorious. You're about to step into what some people only read about. You're about to walk into rooms you didn't fight your way into because your obedience opened the door. You're about to be trusted with love that doesn't break you, purpose that doesn't drain you, and peace that doesn't come with conditions. And it's all because you waited well. And when that moment comes, and it will come, you'll look back and say, "God, you really were working all along. You weren't just building a blessing, you were building a bloodline. And what's coming will not just satisfy you, it will ripple through your family, through your community, through everyone who hears your story."